You're not alone. If you need someone to talk to today, please contact Crisis Services Canada by either calling them at 1-833-456-4566 all hours of the day. Or you can text them at 45645 at 4 p.m. to 12 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Remember, you're not alone, and Crisis Services Canada is here to help.
The FHN network is sponsored in part by Hoddle Services. If you're looking for a disc jockey, karaoke host, video jockey to videographer, our company can help. With over 20 years of experience, we would be happy to help with your special event within Ontario, Canada. You can contact us at 226-988-2895 or visit us at our website at hoddleservices.vpweb.ca. That's HODDLE Services. We look forward to hearing from you and helping with your special event.
Yes, that's right. It's Lock It Up Sportstalk. My name is Logan Lockhart here on the Fine Subtle Network and on ASTV. We do it every Tuesday, 1 o'clock Eastern Time. Lock It Up, all sports, all the time. And of course, it's Stanley Cup playoff season, and we're down to 4. Now, what we saw last night was Game 5, a critical game. Islanders Lightning. This game was a nightmare for the networks. It was an 8-0 final. And I'll tell you, when it's 6-0 after 2 periods, that's when you know, okay, this is a nightmare for the networks. And yeah, you're going to expect some physicality when it's 6-0 after 2 periods. And, you know, you kind of just want to get it over with. Tampa, you can tell from the first 3 shifts of that game, they weren't going to lose. They understand how important it is not to be down in a series heading back to Long Island. That's a very tough arena to win in. They're going to have to do it, but they're up 3-2 now. So here's the thing about the Lightning. We know that they're the best team in this league, and they would have been favored against anyone. Colorado won the President's Trophy, but even if we had a cup final, let's say, of Tampa Bay, Colorado, Tampa would have been favored. And Tampa, they haven't had home ice advantage in the first 2 series that they played, right? But yet they're still the favorite. That's how good they are. Stamkos now gets on the board yesterday. So now you got that secondary scoring, if you can even call it that, because we know how good Steven Stamkos is. But that's just the strength of the Lightning, right? They have it all. The goaltending is solid. Vasilevsky, I saw this stat yesterday. Since 2020 in the playoffs, after a loss, he was 12-0 coming into yesterday. He's now 13-0 after a loss. So what does that tell you? I mean, the confidence with the Tampa Bay Lightning, it's got to be at a sky high all time, right? They're coming off a cup win. And the Islanders, oh boy. I mean, listen, the good thing about the playoffs is that these games don't carry over into each other. When you lose 8-0, you can kind of just throw it out the window. If I'm the Islanders, I don't know if I'm watching any of the game, the tape of it from last night. Why would you? It was a mess. Nothing went right. The Islanders had an opportunity early in the second period to get on the board. It was 3-0 at the time. 2 open nets, essentially open nets, hit in the post. Vasilevsky in great position. He's always there. And that's when you knew, okay, this thing's over. Tampa Bay, they're holding on to this thing. So it's 3-2 Tampa in that series. Tonight, it's back to Vegas. Montreal, Vegas. And unfortunately, the storyline of this series, it's not about Montreal and the Cinderella story, let's call it, or it's not about Vegas and all the goalie controversy that's going on of them. Instead, this has become about the officiating. And that's never a good thing. When the officiating is the number one story, you know that things aren't going well. It's unfortunate, but that's what it is right now. And I was watching game 1, 2, and it didn't really hit me in the moment. I understand there were complaints from people. Game 3 is when I kind of said, okay, well, I can kind of see something here where Montreal, they're just not getting the calls. And I'm the last person in the world to start harping on the officials. I really am. I don't like all that talk. I think it's nonsense for the most part, but it's become a storyline, and we have to acknowledge it. If we're going to talk about this series, you kind of have to go to the officiating, and you got to do it pretty early in the conversation. It's unfortunate, but that's what it is. Now, Fleury with the gaff in game 3, Josh Anderson ties the game. Montreal sends it to overtime. They end up winning the game. Fleury doesn't start game 4, and it turned out to be a gutsy move, but one that paid off for Pete DeBoer and the Golden Knights, and I liked the move. I was one of the people throughout these playoffs kind of knocking on the door there about Robin Lehner, saying, hey, maybe he should get an opportunity. And Vegas did this last year in the playoffs. They kind of went back and forth. It's interesting with goaltending in the playoffs because over the last few years, especially with the teams that have been successful in the playoffs, they've used 2 goalies. And we were kind of seeing that with the Islanders. You can see Sorokin and Varlamov, forget last night, but just in general, it's a tandem. Montreal would never go to a tandem, of course. It's always going to be Carey Price. But if you don't have a Vasilevsky or if you don't have a Price, you kind of have to roll the dice sometimes with goaltending and trust whoever you think gives you the best chance to win. You don't have to stick with one guy. I like how Lehner started game 4. I believe he's going to start game 5. Why wouldn't he? I mean, he played fantastic in game 4. And Vegas, through the first 2 periods of that game, now they ended up winning this game in overtime. But through the first 2 periods of that game, I was prepared to come on the air here and say, Vegas didn't show up. Montreal's now playing a team dead in the water. They did nothing for the first 2 periods. This looked like Montreal's game to lose. At home, it was really looking like Montreal's going to take a 3-1 series lead to Vegas, which would be insanity if I told you that at the beginning of the playoffs. But Vegas, they're a good team. We can't get carried away here. They're resilient enough. They've been in this spot. They're an expansion franchise. They've been now to the 3rd round of the playoffs 3 times in their history. It's remarkable. So you really have to give Vegas credit, and I know people are going to talk about the officials. That's just where we are now in this series. It's the primary storyline. But there's some great things going on aside from the officiating. I think the goaltending controversy in Vegas is definitely something to keep an eye on. And then, of course, Montreal. Their ability to help Carey Price, keep the puck out of the net, it was key in game 4. I think that might have been Montreal's best game of the series. Unfortunately, they lost it. But that's the good news. This is the good news out of Montreal. It's that they may have played the best game of the series. They didn't win it, and the series is tied. So you're guaranteed a game 6 at the Bell Center, no matter what. You can lose tonight, and you're guaranteed a chance at home to send this thing to game 7. Now, I think this series is a total toss-up at this point, though. I have concerns over Vegas. Their goal scoring is troubling to me right now. I understand Carey Price is in the net, but they're not making his life difficult. Winnipeg had the same problem. And you see what happened to Winnipeg. Vegas is a better team than Winnipeg, but I think the goal scoring is definitely an issue when it comes to the Vegas Golden Knights. You see the loss of Stevenson. Now Tuck has to go to the first line. They kind of lose that depth. So I have my concerns over Vegas. I like Vegas at home. If you're a betting man or betting woman, then I would say that, yeah, you probably go with Vegas at home. But the thing is, this series to me, total coin toss. I think if you asked a Montreal fan and you told them that this series would be a toss-up, they'd say, that's good news. We'll take a toss-up. But if you asked a Golden Knights fan and said this is a toss-up, they probably wouldn't feel too good about it. So I think that Montreal's feeling good about this. They're playing for Ducharme, who, of course, tested positive for COVID-19. He's not with the team right now. He hopes to be back soon, but I believe it's about a 10-day minimum. He's got to be away. Terrible timing. I hope he's well. I've heard that he's well. But with the Montreal Canadiens, they're playing for their coach. We've seen this in sports over the last year. The Cleveland Browns went into Pittsburgh for the playoff game, and without Stefanski there. And they played for him, and they upset the Steelers in just remarkable fashion, where, I can't recall off the top of my head. They might have scored 4 touchdowns in the first quarter. So they rallied around their head coach, playing for him. I kind of see the same thing from Montreal's perspective, and I think that's a good thing for them and not for Vegas, because, again, with Vegas, I have my concerns. I mean, I trust their goaltending. I like Leonard and net. I think that he's going to be good. But how many good games can you get out of Robin Leonard, right? We're not talking about Carey Price here. You might get 1 or 2 out of Leonard. We've already seen 1. Can we get another? So that's Game 5 tonight. It's going to be a late start if you're on the East Coast. This is just how it's going to be. 9 o'clock Eastern, 6 out west on the Pacific time coast there. So this series, look, whichever way you slice it, it's about the officiating right now. And that's a problem, because everyone's going to be watching this game tonight, and we're going to be locking in on the officials. Whenever that happens, nothing good comes out of it, right? Think about it in baseball. It's like when you're locked in on the strike zone and how the umpire is calling balls and strikes, you're always going to look at it from a cynical point of view, saying he missed this call, he missed that call. That's what's going to happen tonight with the Canadiens and the Golden Knights. So that series, to me, we'll see. I think it's a toss-up. Montreal can very well win this series. I'm convinced now. I think they're hanging in very good. I think they got the juice in them. I was concerned about that this whole Cinderella run, it's got to run out at some point. Sometimes it doesn't. It runs out maybe after you win the Stanley Cup. But I was worried about that. They look good to me. I think it's a total toss-up. 9 o'clock start Eastern time. But back to the other series. I touched on it briefly, but when you come off an 8-0 game in the playoffs, this is the playoffs, ladies and gentlemen. You don't lose 8-0, right? You lose 4-0 maybe. It may be, in a game that gets out of hand at the end, you lose 4-0. When it's 6-0 after 2 periods, okay, this was a total blowout. It was Tampa's best game of the playoffs, and it was the Islanders' worst game of the playoffs. And when you mix those two together, knowing how good of a team Tampa is, you're going to have an 8-0 result. The goaltending on the Islanders side, I like. Not yesterday, of course. I still trust them to hold the fort. And, of course, at home, I'm going to still say, and I said this at the beginning, this series is going to go to 7 games. I'm going to stick with that. I think the Islanders bounce back. I think this is a resilient group. I love Barry Trotz behind the bench of this team. Perfect fit. I don't see how they go down like that. An 8-0 loss. You come back home. You got to give your fans. This could be the last game at Nassau Coliseum. You got to give your fans something here. You can't lose 8-0 on the road and then come back home and then kind of let Tampa run away with it. Okay, off to the Cup final. You can't do that if you're the Islanders. So for those reasons alone, sentimental reasons, I understand. I like the Islanders in Game 6. I think that's going 7. Montreal, Vegas. Like I said, it's a total toss-up. Could we see a potential Islanders, Habs, Stanley Cup final? At this point, it doesn't look likely. And that's more in part due with the Islanders and not Montreal. Now, we're going to get to some baseball stuff at the end. There's some very, very intriguing things going on, especially if the new rule changes that happened in the middle of the season that raised a lot of controversy. I think it's worth noting, even though this is Stanley Cup playoff season and on Lock It Up, we've been kind of locked in on the playoffs, the NHL playoffs. That's what we've done on this show for the last few weeks. We'll get to the baseball stuff, but just before that, quickly, if there is a Game 7 with the Islanders and Tampa, of course, you're going to have to see the Islanders win another game in Tampa. They've done it once. They won Game 1. Because this is the big thing now. It's about, can you win a game on the road? If you got to win a road game, right? If you don't have home ice advantage, you got to win at least one to win a series. Unfortunately, for the Islanders. Tampa also won at Nassau Coliseum in Game 3. So now the Islanders are forced to win 2 games on the road. And if it's going to happen, it's going to happen in Game 7. It's not easy. It's just not easy. Tampa, that Stanley Cup got them over the hump last year, and they're incredibly difficult to beat. Now let's go to the baseball stuff. So foreign substances. If you're not caught up on this story, briefly, pitchers have reportedly taken this a little too far. You can have a little bit of sunscreen. You can have a little bit of pine tar. You know, it's not completely outlawed using foreign substances to get a better grip. Once you get a better grip, in theory, the ball spins more, which makes it harder to hit. So what's happened is the MLB has cracked down on it. And now, yesterday, the rules are in effect. Umpires can now check pitchers. They're checking everything. You got to see this. They're checking their hats. They're checking their belts, the uniform, anywhere that they believe that a pitcher might be hiding a foreign substance so they can rub a little bit on the ball, pitch it, boom, and you have the advantage on the mound. That's what's happened. Now, a lot of controversy. Where does it come from? It comes from the fact that it's happened in season, right? Because now the pitchers are forced to make an adjustment. Everyone uses a little bit of something, or the reports are 80%, a little bit of something to get a better grip, especially in the cold weather. You know, really think about it from just a simple perspective. I'm not even talking about professional baseball players here, anyone. If we were going to play catch and it was cold weather, you know, it'd be tough to get a good grip on the ball. You're going to use a little bit of something to make sure you get the best grip that you can. That's what these pitchers are doing. The problem is the batting averages in 2021 are an all-time low. The league wants more action. They don't just want strikeout and a home run, a strikeout and a home run. You want a single, you want a double, you want some action on the bases, base running, you want everything. So the controversy comes from forcing pitchers to adjust in season. Now they're being forced to kind of change their entire approach. And a lot of pitchers and a lot of people in the baseball world have been saying this should have been done before the season in spring training. Give the pitcher some time to adjust. The MLB saw it differently and said that this is something that we need to crack down on right away. All power to them. And that's what they've done. So yesterday, we're doing this Tuesday. So yesterday on Monday was the first day. It was in effect. No one got caught. You don't want to be the pitcher who gets caught first. You're going to be on the wrong side of history if that happens. That's going to be a trivia question for the rest of time. Being the first one to get caught using foreign substances in this new era of rules. So you definitely don't want to do that. But at the end of the day, this is going to be fascinating. And I think that this alone is worth keeping an eye on. You want to see how the pitches, especially of spin rate, you want to see how that differs from what we've seen in the first 2 months of the season. And you want to see the batting averages. Apparently, it's gone up by 10 points in the last few weeks, right? I don't know if there's any correlation to this. This story about foreign substances really broke on June 5th. And as I'm speaking right now, it's June 22nd. So there's been a few weeks here to kind of put some pressure on the pitchers not to use any foreign substances. That's what's happened. So you're seeing it all across the game now. And I think it's really fascinating. It really is, because this spin rate statistic, which really raised the eyebrows of a lot of people within the baseball world with who's using what and who's cheating, that changed the game. And this stat alone really changed everything. So that's the deal in baseball. Tonight, of course, like I mentioned in the NHL, you got Game 5, Montreal, Vegas. This is kind of the game of the day. But in terms of games of the day, if you're looking just as a generalist, looking for something today, you want to lock it up, as we do on this show. Wander Franco, the top prospect in baseball, makes his debut tonight for the Tampa Bay Rays. I believe they're at Fenway Park, which is quite a place to make your major league debut. This is quite a hyped prospect. He's 20 years old. He's a switch-hitting shortstop. He's the kind of guy that you definitely want to keep an eye on. The game's actually in in St. Petersburg. So it's a home game for the Rays, hosting the Red Sox. This is a story. This is a story today. And with Franco, if you haven't heard his name before, quite a prospect. I got to tell you that. I mean, he's a guy that's going to hit for a high average. Not sure if the home run power will necessarily translate to the big leagues. I don't think he'll ever be a big-time home run bat, but he'll get on base and he'll play a good shortstop. He's a switch hitter, best prospect in baseball, and he graduates to the MLB today. Habs, Knights, Game 5, huge game, of course. Can you imagine if there's more controversy with the officiating? My, oh my. It's really become a story, ladies and gentlemen. And again, I've said this at the beginning of the show. I'm not the kind of guy to harp on the officials. It's not something that I do. But when it's talked about this much, you just have to. It is the primary storyline here. That is Lock It Up Sports Talk. Enjoy the sports, ladies and gentlemen, on the Fine Subtle Network here and presented by ASTV. We do it every Tuesday, 1 p.m. Eastern. The game tonight, 9 p.m. Eastern. Quite a late start, 6 p.m. on the West Coast. Until next Tuesday, here I am on Lock It Up Sports Talk, signing off.
Make sure to check out our past shows from previous weeks on our YouTube, Facebook, or Mixcloud channels. You can always catch up on podcasts while checking out our FHN Network channel on YouTube or Facebook. Or you can listen to an audio copy of our past shows on our Mixcloud channel at FHN_Network. The FHN Network, the future of entertainment.